Oh, Nelly, have we got a real barn burner here? It's 6 minutes now after 8 o'clock, just in case you're counting. I'm counting because I was trying to do a little function here on the programming computer as I was getting ready for the show, and it stopped the clock. So I'm listening to the intro come up, and I'm looking at the clock, and it says it's 4 minutes after 8 o'clock, which we should still be in Fox News. And then I was left scratching my head, wondering, all right, how did that happen? And then the function that I was doing stopped, and the clock updated. So to let you know, my mind is with me this morning. It's just in another room, and it'll join me sometime shortly. Speaking of joining me, Steve Millington, the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, as he does on most Tuesday mornings, will be joining us a little later in the hour. And then we have a very special guest, Kathy Romer, who is one of the county commissioners from Jerome County. It'll be her first visit in studio with us. Probably though, it's not a stranger for me because I went to a breakfast that the women's Magic Valley Women's Republican Club had in Jerome about a year ago, and it was the very first time I got to meet a great many people in the area, and actually got to chat with her at the time about the fact that we really don't do a lot of coverage of Jerome County on air, and we really should. So that process starts today. She's not running for reelection. She is of the three commissioners in that county. This is a year she can take it. Well, I don't want to say that anybody in politics takes it easy at any time, but she doesn't have to do all the campaigning, and there are no yard signs up for her campaign this year. So that is something just to let you know what's coming up in the next hour of the program as well. 8 minutes now after 8 o'clock, and Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. I have television at home. I've had television at home now since Friday night. I had my DirecTV. The service had been suspended for several months. I was able to get it hooked back up on Friday night, and I'm actually able to watch some of the coverage going on, political coverage. And of course, I haven't watched any of these news networks, and I'm not talking about your old traditional alphabet networks of the days of Chet Huntley and Walter Cronkite and Howard K. Smith. No, the current one, CNN, Clinton News Network as it's known, Fox and MSDNC. Those I've been watching the last few days, and I've forgotten just how much they devoted to political coverage. Well, what's the main point of the job, right? So they're doing a lot of that because there's a big primary in New York today, and this is a huge one. This is the numbers here being that it's still one of America's biggest states. Now, when I was born in Western New York in 1962, which was a very long time ago, that was still the most populous state in the country. And then California surpassed it, and likely Texas and Florida have now done the same. But New York still has a huge wealth of delegates in both the Democrat and Republican parties available for whoever comes away with a win there today as they head toward their conventions. Donald Trump is a sure thing in New York. Let's be honest about that. I was just noticing some of the posts on Facebook this morning. Tim Ramsey, who was my next door neighbor for many, many years when I was a boy growing up. Tim served for many, many years as a prison guard after he got out of the Air Force, now retired from New York State Department of Corrections, and also worked for many, many years as a police officer. And his brother was one of my best friends as well. Tim was commenting this morning that in his part of New York, that would be my hometown, he said it is definitely Trump country. And Trump was speaking yesterday in Buffalo, New York, where he is a huge hero because they love their football team there, even though it's a terrible football team and has been for all of this current century. They love their football team, and a couple of years ago when a singer by the name of John Bon Jovi tried to buy the team and move it to Toronto, Ontario, Donald Trump stepped in and threw out a larger bid. Not because he wanted to buy the team, but he wanted to prevent it from moving. That scared Bon Jovi away, and then a fellow by the name of Terry Pagula bought the team and kept it where it is, which was Trump's goal all along, was to keep it within the confines, because it truly is the only professional football team in New York State. The other two that claim to be from New York City play in New Jersey. So this huge primary going on today, Trump owns New York City as far as votes go there among Republicans, and Long Island is his territory. And upstate New York, he has great appeal. He said something yesterday. He's been saying, make America great again, and I'll build the wall, and all of these things have become just, standard in his campaign. We've heard them 100 times. But at the end of his remarks in Buffalo, at least the soundbite that I heard this morning while I was getting ready for work, he said, we're going to put America first. America first. It's been a long time, I think, since someone in politics was that bold because we keep hearing, well, we need to give billions of dollars a year away to Pakistan, even though they hate us. We need to give weaponry away to Saudi Arabia, even though they helped attack us on 9/11. We'll talk about that a little later in the program if we get an opportunity as well. But I'm telling you right now, I'm starting to see how he resonates with all of these people, people I grew up with, who are just simply fed up because they're living in an area. When I was a boy, my main street in my hometown was always bustling. The stores were all open. There was even a local movie theater. The theater has been gone since I was probably in grade school. And by the middle of the 1980s, most of the storefronts were empty, and nothing has changed there in well over 30 years. People are upset. I'm using a euphemism there. I could use something a lot stronger, but I hope to keep this a family radio show, despite some of our callers. And I'm just getting a little, not meant as a dig. It's just to remind you, friendly reminder, when you're talking to me, you're talking to potentially thousands of other people, some of whom you may know, and you want to keep it a little bit clean on air. 8:13 now. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Great piece this morning. This is a little long, but I'd like to share this before we have our guest come in this morning. Ed Morrissey, who is one of the chief writers, might be the editor at a publication called Hot Air, has been doing some research, and he says, he's written a book about this. This is about 2 minutes in length. He says, though, as few as 2 million votes may determine the outcome of this year's presidential election, and those votes are centered in just a few places around the country. Take a listen.
Well, I got some data on which counties used to be Republican and moved to the Democratic column in 2008 and 2012. And some of these counties, they were Republican for decades. Hamilton County, Ohio, for instance, was the most Republican county in Ohio for years and years and years, for like 80 years. And then in 2008, it went for Barack Obama over John McCain, and it went for Barack Obama again in 2012. So you ask yourself, how did the most Republican of Ohio counties suddenly vote for Barack Obama? What happened?
And not just one time, but twice. Right, so it's
How
not
did it
a
happen
fluke.
twice? Not a fluke. It's very much not a fluke, and that's true of all 7 battleground counties that are featured in Going Red, is that these are not flukes. They are opportunities that were grabbed by Barack Obama and Democrats in 2008 and 2012, and that were missed by Republicans in both cycles. In areas, by the way, where Republicans still tend to win state and local elections.
Well, that's what's amazing. You said you went to these counties and
did.
you talked to activists, you talked to voters, you talked to elected officials, many of which are Republicans.
Yes.
And you're like, how did you win and John McCain lost or Mitt Romney lost? What was their answer?
Their answer was multi-layered. First off, the Obama campaign, and they emphasized that it was the Obama campaign and not the Democrats, just had a superior organization, they had a superior mission, which was to try to connect with people on a neighborhood level, and not just to rack up Facebook likes and Twitter follows, because I think Republicans missed the point of this granular micro-targeting effort that Barack Obama did. It was to get to know what was important to people in each of these neighborhoods, find ways to contextualize their agenda, and to make an emotional connection with these voters that's saying, this is a guy who understands what it's like to be me.
That is Ed Morrissey from Hot Air explaining how, and he has a book out about this. He explains that he believes that this year it won't take much to turn those counties back the other way. And, I have been a Ted Cruz guy now for the last several months after my top 3 choices all dropped out. 1, 2, 3, they were gone, just falling out like flies after a can of Raid was sprayed around a room. Maybe not quite the proper analogy. But I will accept Trump, and I will accept Trump because, I'll put it this way, he definitely will shake things up. Now, I do not believe, along the same lines that some people do, that he's going to show up in Washington, march up to Capitol Hill, and punch the leadership right in the nose. That doesn't work that way. But after hearing his remarks yesterday and seeing some of the reactions from people that I've known all my life, and why they are voting for him, and these were people who have long time conservative Republicans, they are just so fed up that they are willing to go along and say, all right, we need someone who's going to come in here and stop the baloney. Stop giving away America's resources. Stop giving away what America built and telling the American people they have to take less because they're fed up with it. And they've reached, I guess, what you might call the end of their ropes. So I bring that up today, and I think once Trump wins, and I'll reflect back to something that I heard many months ago on Morning Joe. I heard I've only been able to watch it the last few days. I didn't have TV, as I said, for 15 months, which really is quite healthy. I should point that out sometimes to people, that you do more reading and you find more time for other things in life. But I do see some of the clips the following day that are posted. And Joe Scarborough said even months ago, when Trump had such a huge lead already and was showing so well in so many polls, he said, the thing you got to remember about all of this, he said, is this man, if he was anybody else, they would be calling it over. Media would be saying, the Republican nomination is a lock. They're not doing it, he said at the time, because they simply don't like him. He's not establishment. He's not politically correct. He just, he shoots from the hip. Maybe not quite so much anymore as he used to, but this is the argument that they're making is, well, someone's going to stop him at some point. Well, nobody has. And even though he has had a couple of run-ins with Ted Cruz about the way Cruz has been collecting delegates in some states, the additional delegates that were left over after some of the primaries and the caucuses that happened, you're going to, I think, see after today, Donald Trump gets back on his winning ways and he sails off to the convention. Also saw today a great column by the editor emeritus of the Washington Times, a fellow by the name of Wesley Pruden. If you read the Washington Times online, I don't know that you can get a hard copy of it, that is a paper copy of it anywhere in the area, but if you read it online, Mr. Pruden says today that all of these naysayers who keep saying that these Republicans can't beat Hillary Clinton, he said, it's only April. And we've seen a lot of elections. And he reminds people, 1948, the Roper Polling Company stopped polling in September because they said Thomas Dewey's lead was so large that Harry Truman could not catch up. Well, Truman won re-election. And we were told in 1980 that Ronald Reagan was a fruitcake and that he could simply not win an election, a general election, because the American people didn't agree with his brand of conservatism. And going into October, he was behind in the polls to Jimmy Carter, even though Jimmy Carter had screwed up rescuing the hostages in Iran and caused the problem in Iran in the first place that led to the hostage taking. And the economy was in the tank. And guess what? On Election Day, Reagan just hammered Carter in a historic upset and just pounded away from state to state to state. Carter just was left humiliated. So these things can turn. And so all of these people in media who want you to vote for their girl, let me just remind you, you can make up your own mind come Election Day in November. We've got more coming up. Steve Millington will join us. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Bill Colley with you as well this morning. And in hour number 2, Kathy Romer joins us. She's a member of the Board of Commissioners in Jerome County. All of that's on the way in just a short while, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're at 43. We'll get into the 70s today, and then by the end of the week, folks, 80-degree temperatures. It won't last, but 80-degree temperatures.